Good evening and welcome to the third meeting of fiscal year 2027 for the Milton Planning Board. At this time, I would like to now call the meeting to order and begin by introducing the members and our staff.
Cheryl Tagayas, Secretary.
Maggie Oldfield, member.
Hal Munger, member.
And Sean?
Sean Fahey, member.
Great. And Meredith Hall serving as chair. Elizabeth Manning is not able to be with us this evening, our planning director, but we do have Avante here.
Avante, Assistant Planning Director.
Great, thank you very much. Moving to number 2, our administrative items. We have a large number of meeting minutes to approve, and it would be nice to get those off, and I will read the dates of those meeting minutes that we are seeking to approve. We have meeting minutes from May 14th, June 11th, June 25th, July 9th, and Cheryl was not here, but we do have April 23rd, and most recently, July 23rd. Has everyone been able to review those?
Yes, with the exception of the April 23rd.
Except for the 23rd, yes. Oh, you have not had a chance to, well, you
I
weren't
wasn't
here,
here.
you weren't here, and Cheryl wasn't here.
So
We should
take
break
them
those,
separately?
yeah, let's take them separately. Well, let's take let's start with the May 14th, June 11th, June 25th, July 9th, and July 23rd.
I was not present at the 6/11 meeting.
For the 6/11 meeting, okay, then let's take that back, let's do the May 14th, June 25th, July 9th, and July 23rd.
I'll move to approve those minutes as stated by the chair.
Is there a
A
second?
second?
Second? Okay, great, and we'll do roll call since Sean is on Zoom. Sean? Start with you. Hal?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Great. Then let's take the June 11th. Sean was not here, so a motion to approve the minutes from June 11th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes on June 11th.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call. Cheryl?
Yes.
You're abstaining, Sean, correct? Okay. Hal?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
And myself, yes. And then the last is the April 23rd. If I could have a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve the minutes from April 23rd.
Is there a second? I'll second. You were not here, so, okay. And this would be Sean? Motion to approve.
Yes.
Maggie? Myself, yes, and abstained Hal and Cheryl, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
great.
Sean, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Is that right? I
Oh, that's
apologize.
better.
Now we can hear you, that's better.
I'll lean closer. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so our future meeting dates that we have scheduled, our next regularly scheduled meeting is for, let's see, we had the 27th, because we were skipping our next week's meeting, so it'll be August 27th, it's hard to believe, and then the next first meeting, let me just double check that. In September, hold on, calendar. That would put us at September 10th would be the next, those would be the next two meetings. August 27th and September 10th. Okay. Great. And then staff update, Avante?
Yeah. So a few updates. I looked a little bit into Labouré College. I know they talked about it at the select board meeting on Tuesday. They showed some conceptual designs an architect did about like a pre-K to kindergarten. I believe the slide deck related to those conceptual designs is on the school building committee webpage. I believe a decision will be made in about a week about whether or not the town will purchase the property. And I think they're also working on a warrant article related to the topic for fall town meeting. So that's about what I learned today.
Great, good, good.
So, yeah, next. On Monday, had a meeting with MAPC for the Economic Development Plan. With Nick and Cody, just talking about resuming the work from the original MAPC scope, albeit with some tweaks depending, or based off of the planning board and the select board's kind of comments. And so MAPC is working on updating that scope and will, when they're finished, send that back to us to review, so yeah. Briefly wanted to mention Vision Zero. I uploaded the report and the conceptual designs to the materials folder. I'm working with the Boston Metropolitan Planning Organization and DPW to see if they can upload those materials to like their respective websites so that it's publicly accessible.
This is still the West Squantum discussion we had from last meeting or different?
This is for the Vision Zero.
Okay.
Yeah, just related to the kind of the safety audit and then
Gotcha, okay.
the few conceptual designs to kind of,
Okay,
yeah, address
Yeah,
kind of
but
safety
on,
concerns.
but on Squantum.
I believe one of them, yes,
Yeah.
is on Squantum, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Only because
More than
I-
one project, yeah.
I do have a customer that I just spoke to the other day, and he lives in the Quincy part, like he's one of the first houses in Quincy on Squantum. And he knew nothing about it. So, and he works for the city of Quincy. So, I don't know what Quincy is doing for outreach, not that it's our responsibility, but he didn't know anything. So I don't know if our residents on that street know anything about it. Has any outreach been done to them?
That's a good question. Can certainly look into it. Yeah, I know there was like a walk that was part of this study for the project, but yeah, I'd have to get back to you on level of engagement. And yeah, I think it just kind of circles back to I definitely feel like this should be publicly accessible
Yeah.
information.
I did share with the East Milton Neighborhood Association, they said they were gonna broadcast it to their members and provide feedback if there were any, but
Okay.
I too spoke with someone just over the line in the Quincy, and they did not know anything about it, and they indicated that they're one of the ones that cuts that corner coming down, so.
Yeah, his concern was that a lot had to do with signs and, he said you can put as many signs as you want, but unless there's enforcement, signs will just become pollution, especially if you're littering the streets with signs as well as, putting up those signs that light up, then that becomes light pollution. So, he's an advocate for just more enforcement rather than littering the street with signs.
So Vontae, I'm sorry, did you say there's gonna be a public hearing on this, some sort of public outreach, but have some sort of
There's
meeting that would be?
for the Vision Zero, that project's pretty much wrapped up. It basically the final result was like this report and then these like conceptual designs that the town can kind of move forward with, pushing forward. There's other work in the area that is being pursued, which I believe how you've asked about in the past, and I believe that's related to Adams Street improvements in the Mass Works. And there is a public forum associated with that'll occur in the fall.
So this is just this is a recommendation to the town, it's not a requirement that the town does this work, or the town has the opportunity to make changes, should residents want, have suggestions to changes. It sounds like that, it's up to the town, what we would like to do, correct?
That's what I thought I heard was said, is that these recommendations, there's no real funding associated
Yeah,
with them at this
right.
time, so the town, Milton and or Quincy, however that's broken down, could decided.
Yeah, it looks
pursue
like
it.
some of it is striping
Yeah, some of it's
like
striping
for-
Yeah.
and rumble strip kind of
for
stuff.
pedestrians.
Yeah.
And, look, the goal of the, I guess, Vision Zero is safety, right? And vehicle, pedestrian, bicycle, so I do think the recommendation should be reviewed. It probably is a DPW-led review, because
Yeah.
it's streets. But I do think, I saw that the select board is, restarting the bicycle advisory committee, and so maybe this would be one of the things that they could review as well.
And the traffic commission.
And the traffic commission, right?
Yeah, I think that's,
All with the goal of, I think,
Improving.
sharing the roads and improving safety. It makes a lot of sense to not let it be sort of backburnered or,
yeah.
like, brought out
I'm just
to
curious
more
to see the
public comment.
differences
Yeah,
in what they currently have and what they're proposing, since it was so recent that they did that project, so that's great.
Yeah, I can make sure to share the report and designs with the bicycle advisory committee and the traffic commission too.
great, yeah.
Anything else, Dave?
I was just gonna briefly mention, me and Liz went out to the Gardner School yesterday, just to do a site walk, so it's progressing very well. Much of the pavement's in, much of the landscape is in. Most of the lighting was in, but not all of it, so, we're still intending to meet with, the
The neighbor,
abutters,
yeah.
just in relation to addressing her concerns
Screening
about
and
the
lighting.
screening. So, yeah, and then also to kind of meet with engineering and building to see just kind of if we can wrap some of those final items up with
Right.
the project, so yeah, that happened yesterday.
When is their anticipated open day? This fall or like a year?
Their temporary sign says fall 2026, but yeah, not sure about an exact date yet,
Yeah.
so but I will relay once I learn more.
Good.
I think that's it on
that
my
it?
end, yeah.
Okay, great. So we can then move to public comment. I don't see anyone here in the room, but if there's anyone on Zoom who would like to provide any comments to the board, you can raise your hand and we'll welcome you to speak.
Hi, it's Deborah Felton.
Hi, welcome.
I would like to speak.
Great, please go ahead.
Yep, Deborah Felton, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 2, 20 Willoughby Road. If any of you, in your free time, I know Meredith, you were there, watched the select board. I did speak again about short-term rentals because I am concerned that this is being pushed down the road to the spring, and things that get pushed aside can die. There are a lot of people in the town, all across town that you heard from at the meeting, at your last meeting, but also, I had reached out to people in East Milton, John Cohane especially, and people are concerned all over town. I think that the town's attorney, Carolyn Murray, did a great job of drafting the short-term rental from the beginning, from her purpose, which is supposed to be short and concise, to through the entire thing. I do question it now being pushed to the health department to draft the regulations, and I haven't had an opportunity to do further research to see what other towns do with that, but I really thought it was going to fall with the building inspector. And really at one meeting, it was said, well, we can leave the health department out of it. So I don't know why now the health department is now taking full responsibility for drafting the regulations on inspections. So I really hope that we get some progress on this. As I said, I think it is a good draft. Really impressed with what the town's attorney has done, and I hope that you will, work on it as you see fit from the draft that the town attorney did. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Can I make a public comment?
You would like to make a public
I
comment?
just would like to congratulate Sean Fahey on completing his first Pan Mash challenge. And I just think it was an awesome accomplishment. And I believe that if people still want to donate, they can donate to Pan Mass up until maybe the end of September. So congratulations, Sean.
Yes, I was gonna say something about that too.
Oh,
So
sorry.
I'm glad you did. I was gonna hold off a little bit later, but I'm glad. So congratulations, Sean. That is great. Very,
And thank you to so many people that have supported me. It's
yeah.
you know what inspired me to ride, certainly, which was Janice. But I don't think there's a family that hasn't been affected, either directly. It's- it's a-
Oh, we just lost you, Sean. We just lost you, sorry.
You know,
Now we can hear you, yes.
just
Sorry.
expressing my gratitude to everybody that has supported me. It's Janice was my inspiration to ride, and I'm grateful for all the support that I've had. So thanks to all my friends and all the folks throughout Milton that have been kind enough and generous enough to support my ride. I deeply appreciate it, and it's only my first. I'll do it for as long as I can.
Great.
Thank
Congratulations again.
I do see another hand raised.
Okay, yes,
Online.
we can,
Hello, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Jin Haddad. I'm a resident at 25 Meadowview. I had just put in a service request to the Traffic Commission yesterday, requesting some speed humps on Brush Hill Road around the elementary school bus stop at Low Circle. Last year, my children rode the bus, and where Low Circle is located on Brush Hill, there's two blind spots around the corner and coming up and down the hill. And just cars are constantly speeding, and it's just so unsafe in the morning crossing over to get to the bus stop. I know that there's another family who plans on intending to take the bus this upcoming school year. Last September, there was a car crash at the corner of Meadowview and Brush Hill. And I believe my neighbor had requested with Traffic Commission to put a stop sign, but I realized that the Traffic Commission's regulations for stop signs does not meet the requirements for how much volume is on that road. So I suggested again speed humps to again slow traffic for the morning and afternoon commute for our children who are taking the bus. And there's no sidewalks on Brush Hill, and again cars drive very fast on that corner, and it's an obstructing view right where the pickup spot is at Low Circle. So I just wanted to bring it to the committee's attention that request, like I said, was put in with the Traffic Commission as of yesterday. Thank you so much for your time.
great, thank you very much.
Are we able to ask a question? No, not really a question, but could you send your contact information to maybe Avante and we could see if we can
Follow up.
help at all? So
Yeah, that's great.
what they do on NPR when they, when
Yeah,
the
that's
governor or
fine.
something calls in.
Yes.
And
And-
if I may,
yeah.
I'll make a suggestion too, if you haven't reached out to the school department or the school committee, in terms of the location of that bus stop, that might be another avenue for safety improvement.
I had reached out to the bus department last year requesting that they change the bus stop to a Meadowview, but I believe that the schedule hasn't come out for this year. But it seemed like they've always assigned the stop to be at Low Circle.
Okay, great. thank you so much. That's what's great. Okay, so if there's no other hands, we can move to our short-term rental bylaw, draft bylaw, and invite our town council, Carolyn Murray, to join us.
We hope you had a nice vacation.
Yes.
It was only a couple of days, but it was nice, yes, thank you.
All right.
But your colleague was very helpful to us, so
Yes.
thank you for arranging for her
Really, yeah.
attendance.
Good, I'm
very
glad, cause I spent a little time briefing her on it, so I'm glad.
Well, thank you for that.
Devontae, if you could pull it up on the
Oh, yeah.
We're
screen.
going to be looking at the 8-4 draft. There were two in the folder
The
and
8-4 is what we should pull up, because that's.
Right, so there were two. One was, they both have the same text, but have slightly different purposes. So one, that isn't so colorful, let's put it that way. That just says draft 8/4/2026 at the top. That incorporated any changes that Liz had forwarded to me from your last meetings, you know, saying, yes, you agree to these changes or whatever. Then the one that's a little more colorful, as I understood it from Liz, you wanted to sort of get a sense of, with the draft that we've been working with, perhaps there are certain things that belong in zoning, certain things that belong in a general bylaw, maybe some things that are common to both. So I took the existing text from the 8-4 bylaw, taking out all of the redlining so that it's a little easier for everyone to follow. Anything that is green would be something that I think should be more appropriate to a zoning bylaw. Anything in blue is a little more appropriate for a general bylaw. Anything not highlighted at all could go in either one. And then at the very end of that colorful document, I just included a little chart with a couple of ideas of sort of side-by-side comparisons, or what's the difference between doing this as a general bylaw versus a zoning bylaw. There are still some things I'll say that are included here that could also be moved to regulations, if that is, you know, if the ultimate path is that we're gonna make a decision as to whether it be a general or zoning bylaw. You know, some of the requirements, like for the application and things that they need to submit, could be moved to regulations if you wanted to have this a little bit scaled down from its current length. But one thing I still think needs to be addressed, regardless of which direction you take, is, let's assume you decide, and based on public comments, I think it's moving in the direction of perhaps a general bylaw with more involvement from the Board of Health. Even if that's the case, that this is how this winds up, I still think we want to amend the zoning bylaw to be clear, to identify the use, and to also be clear where that use would be allowed. And even if it is going to be allowed in all zoning districts, that there should be some passing reference to it. Because right now, with respect to most of your residential zoning districts, that, you know, the opening line is that, you know, use not mentioned is not allowed. So someone could argue that a short-term rental, since it's not identified in the zoning bylaw, other than as a passing reference in the ADU bylaw, someone could make an argument that it's not allowed by zoning. So how is it that we are registering them on the general side of things, but then we're not allowing the use on the zoning side?
Sean has his hand raised.
Sean, yes.
Good evening, Carolyn, how are you?
Good, how are you? And congratulations.
Thank you. I apologize for not being present tonight. The distinction that we had asked your colleague was to identify from what we had prepared for a draft, what could be in a regulation and what could be in a bylaw. The distinction, we weren't asking about the distinction, at least I don't recall asking about the distinction between a zoning bylaw and a general bylaw, but we were having some lengthy discussion about the potential to have regulations. So what I recall the request being was you identify what we had within the draft that could be in a regulation. That was the ask.
My apologies if I didn't quite understand that to be,
It's okay.
the
Could be us.
ask, but.
Could be me.
No, that's okay, but I think to answer the question, I think most of section 4, which is the registration requirements and what an applicant needs to submit, I think that could all be in regulations. And I think the inspections could also fall under regulations. I also think that portions of section 6, which would be the responsibilities of the operators, particularly when we get into the whole house rules requirement, I think all of that could go to regulations as well.
So I'm sorry, I was writing a note. So sections 4 and 5
6.
and 6.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Section 5 also? 4 and 5?
4, 5, and
4, 5, and 6, the
5 is
bulk,
inspections.
yeah, 4, 5, and 6, the bulk of those
Thank you.
could go to regulations.
So Carolyn, in your experience, do you see towns first adopting regulations and then creating a bylaw? Because I think our board values both. And is that, as long as they're consistent, is that something that you see commonly done? Or just towns go either to regulations or to a bylaw?
I think typically I say bylaw get passed first, because if town meeting doesn't approve the bylaw, then it really doesn't matter what your regulations say. But sometimes, I have seen in some instances where the regulations will also be prepared at the same time as town meeting. Because there are folks who will say, okay, we have this very bare bones bylaw that says that all these short-term rentals have to be registered. But the devil's in the details, what about this, what about that, what about insurance requirements, what about the house rules, which is probably going to be important to folks. So I have seen in some instances where the regulations will be provided as informational, as a handout at town meeting, or maybe available, on the website or whatever, just so that folks know, here's also the regulations that are being contemplated, but the regulations wouldn't actually be finalized until, till town meeting actually voted on the bylaw itself. Particularly if there's a floor amendment at town meeting and something is changed, you do want to make sure the regulations are consistent with that.
So right now we've got
Can I
a,
ask a second?
yep, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, just one more question. So if I'm hearing what you're saying correctly, any town that has regulations also has a bylaw. And I guess what that would mean is you cannot only have regulations?
So some towns do only have a regulation, and that regulation is typically through the Board of Health. But I will say that the short-term rental statute itself, Chapter 64G, and it's Section 14, that begins with a city or town by ordinance or bylaw may regulate short-term rentals. So where the legislature was very specific that this be done by a bylaw, it called into question whether those who did it only by regulation would be enough. So I think some communities have gone ahead and also adopted the bylaw to go with it. Which,
Al, did you have time?
Oh, right now we've got a singular general bylaw. Are you suggesting one path forward that we could take is to remove sections of 4, 5, and 6, continue to advance that and have it be a regulation that eventually would be implemented by the Board of Health, and at the same time, take the remaining sections of the general bylaw that we have, continue with the general bylaw, and at the same time, in parallel, do a zoning bylaw, which is much smaller. It just addresses the few things that you think that we need to in a zoning bylaw. Is that a
yes,
fair summation?
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Not to bring up a sore subject, but you just explaining that reminds me of what the legislature did with MBTA zoning. So they passed a very short statute and said that HLC would promulgate the guidelines and regulations at a future date. And then they promulgated these regulations that many people, our own legislator said that they had no intention of supporting these, they wouldn't have supported these regulations. So I'm a bit hesitant to follow that process, because how do we know what the regulations are going to be? We've been burnt by it, so I'm uncomfortable with that process.
And that's fair, and I think this is a process that a lot of communities had to work through on their own. That perhaps in some communities where maybe the Board of Health did not want to take this on, for example, 'cause for whatever reason, a lot of this fell to the Board of Health initially. If the Board of Health didn't seem to have the staff or the inclination to take it on, I think in those communities, it tended to fall more towards a more expansive bylaw. And then someone else would have been identified, or some other office would be identified. You know, this could come through the select board's office, quite frankly, because it's just another form of licensing, similar to, liquor licenses or entertainment licenses. There's really no right or wrong. It's just what works best for Milton, and who has the staff and the inclination to really enforce this and implement the registration process.
And not to discount that feeling you just expressed, but you also did say we could continue with the regulations, have those ready to go hand in hand with the bylaw. So if we get to town meeting and it passes general or zoning, you could have those regulations ready to go at the same time
You
as
could.
reference, right?
You could,
Okay.
yes.
But then also you could continue with it the way it is here, where they're combined as a general bylaw.
Yes, you could.
So town meeting would be voting on this general bylaw all at
Singular
the same
place,
time.
yeah,
They
right.
would be voting on the regulations at the same time. So that seems to give more assurance that people will know what it entails. That seems a better path from what I've heard thus far.
The only thing I want to make sure I heard correctly, town meeting's not going to vote on the regulations. They'll vote on the bylaw. And the regulations might also be available so they can see what are these other details that, whether it's the Board of Health, Select Board, whoever it is, what are those other provisions or protections? What are they? What do they look like? But town meeting's only voting on the bylaw itself.
Right, but current draft has a lot of things that could be in a regulation, but are currently in the bylaw.
Correct.
So if we keep them in a bylaw, then town meeting's voting on those. And there would be I would assume, very few things left to come in a separate regulation.
I would agree with that.
Such as the fee schedule that we've discussed having be separate so that we didn't have to come back and change the bylaw every time that the fees changed.
Right.
So it seems to me,
Yeah.
we spoke about getting more feedback from the various department heads, and of course, including the Department of Health, the Building Commissioner, the Fire and Police. And that would provide more guidance to these, which might normally be regulation. So if the Board of Health did it, I assume that they would need to also reach out to the Building Commissioner and the Police and Fire. But that would be a separate regulation, that people may not have had time to do all of that at the same time at town meeting, right?
I think so. What my understanding is that Nick has scheduled a meeting in 2 weeks, or around, roughly 2 weeks,
Yeah, he's
to bring in all the departments together. So
Okay.
I feel like at this point, until we get to, I don't wanna waste our board's time, I don't wanna waste Carolyn's time, until those conversations have been had. I feel like we can take this, give this to the select board at this point, let them have those conversations and determine which way we would like to go. I think our sense has been that we would like to do a general bylaw and have and do some amendments to the zoning to change the use. But I think until we can't speak for our staff. I get CC'd on what all the permits that are going through with all the 40B projects, the expansion of the hospital. They are out straight and with a skeleton crew. And I think we have to be very sensitive to that and sort of follow the guidance from the select board on timing for this. They've decided not to put it forward for fall town meeting. But I do want the residents who live near these, who are have problematic Airbnbs. Ms. Felton has spoken, and we've heard other residents, John Cohane, there are some problematic short-term rentals that need regulation. So I think,
I think the important thing though
Yeah.
to pass along is this conversation that we've just had about what information is available to town meeting members at the time they take a vote. Because if it's a zoning bylaw has to go and regulations aren't in place, then I think there will be concern. And yet, the timing of the regulations only have to be approved by the Board of Health. So, town meeting members, 275 are gonna be voting on something, and then they were gonna be relying upon a set of regulations developed and voted on by a much smaller group, a Board of Health of 3. So I am more comfortable in terms of transparency and information being available to town meeting members when they vote, to have a general bylaw that incorporates all the feedback as has been suggested from the departments. But in terms of a kind of bylaw and a path forward, I think the path that we've been on with the general bylaw is what I would suggest to the select board is a way to go.
Are we able to continue along that path with a general bylaw that was just described in the meeting 2 weeks ago described? And also spin out of here the limited zoning bylaw so that we can continue along that? Is that something that would be appropriate for us to proceed with? Because that to me, that seems less impacted by town staff input in terms of, I see at the bottom, the little spreadsheet you created about the difference between general and zoning. And one of them you point out is the grandfathering in and where it's located and something about parking. So would it be prudent for us to pull some of these things out and now ask you to create a zoning bylaw that's very limited?
Sure.
So that when those conversations happen with town staff and the select board has that, they could proceed with that in parallel so that we can tie a bow on this and be ready to go, so we don't have to address this in March or whatever.
So to that point, sorry,
Oh, Sean raised his hand.
Oh.
Sean, is this along the same discussion, or I was just gonna do a follow-up to Hal, but if you have something else that's also following up.
Please continue.
Okay,
Go ahead,
thanks. In green, you have, for zoning bylaw, this should be incorporated into the definition, and then you have somewhere else, this should be, for zoning, this should be incorporated somewhere else. To Hal's point, would it make sense for you to do a draft based on just the green items here that would be a standalone zoning bylaw? And then the question is, I guess, would it be a general bylaw and a zoning bylaw, or a zoning bylaw and regulations? Either one.
So I think to Hal's point, I envision a very brief zoning amendment, which would really be just amending, and I guess I need to verify this with all of you. Is the intent to allow short-term rentals in all zoning districts or only certain zoning districts? And if it is only certain zoning districts, then I need to know which ones those are. And that can be a pretty brief amendment to just recognize that use as an allowed use. I would also recommend that the definition of short-term rental that's contained in the zoning bylaw be consistent with what the general bylaw states. Because it's one thing to just refer to section, in chapter 64G, section 1, that's perfectly fine. But, for example, you're tailoring short-term rental uses to just wanting them to be owner-occupied, owner-adjacent. That doesn't exist in the state law, so that's something we'd have to make sure we're clear that the zoning bylaw is allowing short-term rentals, but only insofar as they are owner-occupied or owner-adjacent. The 48 hours or limiting the duration for a rental to 48 hours, if you opted just to do a zoning bylaw, I would incorporate that into the definitions for short-term rental. But if that's going to be contained in a general bylaw, I don't think it's necessary to repeat that in a zoning bylaw. So I think what makes the most sense in my mind is a real simplified zoning amendment that just makes it clear the use is allowed and where it's allowed. Making sure the definition in zoning syncs up with the definition of the general bylaw. Adopt a general bylaw. And whether or not that general bylaw continues to include these sections 4, 5, and 6, and is presented, as one complete package to town meeting, or whether we simplify the general bylaw and start to create this separate document that can become the beginnings of regulations. It could be done that way as well. It starts to sound a little cumbersome, though, to say, well, we've got a general bylaw, we've got a zoning bylaw, and then there are regulations. Now folks are going to, 3 separate locations. It might in some ways be a little more advantageous to contain it all in the bylaw itself. The downside to that, though, is that let's suppose at some point in the future, somebody decides, well, this requirement that somebody provide proof that they live in the residence 9 months out of the year seems to be a little bit onerous. Or we want people to make sure we want that to be that they live in their house 6 months out of the year. Every time we do that, we're going to town meeting versus regulations do give us a little bit more flexibility to amend them.
So does it make sense to think about the things that are in this bylaw now that are like that might be subject to change and make that part of a regulation? I mean, something that might change just based on experience, how it's going, versus other things that are not likely to change. Just thinking about the fact that you go to general bylaw, go to town meeting maybe twice a year, sometimes more times a year that there's a town meeting, but, or just flagging them in here. That's another, I think the color coding works well in terms of trying to understand
Yeah,
it,
no,
so.
I mean, that was very
I wanted to stay away from yellow since that had different meaning in the prior draft.
Yeah, but
It's very helpful.
even if you did that, I think that would be helpful, sort of sets it up for, next steps, I guess.
Sure.
Right.
Because I think, I might suggest there would be a small working group if the select board and the Board of Health and the planning board all have a role in how this moves forward. And it could be, whether it's the chairs of the boards or somebody else from the boards, but that might be helpful. We've been talking about it and looking into this for so long, and it's new to some folks, like the Board of Health and the Select Board, that haven't been a part of all the detail that we've had with Carolyn. So, some questions that might come up in their meeting in 2
I
weeks.
think that's something to be thinking about, but I
Yeah.
think right now I really trust Nick and Liz and Carolyn and the staff to sort of work through this and then come back and, give us their thoughts.
Is it gonna
Because
be
Caroline might say, I don't want anything I don't want this. We saw what's happening, with some of the residency in the school departments, some may feel that they don't wanna be involved with it. The building department is extremely busy, they might not want.
Right.
So I feel like until they get, and I appreciate setting up a working group, but I think until the staff gets to,
So one thing I wanna say about the
Navigate
building
this a little bit.
department at least, and I'm not sure that it
Yeah.
transfers to the Board of Health or the Health Department. But there are fees that can be associated with this. And it was said at one of our meetings, by a resident, that there might be 75 of these already in Milton. And if you calculate it, it's out then, it's, it could be, a fair amount of money that comes in. Just like building permit fees are intended to pay for the staff of the building department to review and inspect.
yeah,
These fees, I would think, would also be applied to that
and cover their time.
and
Yeah,
cover their time. So it's like they can hire additional staff then to bring this up. It's not like it would have to be absorbed. I don't think,
Right.
but I did have a question, and I don't know if this is one.
And Sean, yeah, so,
It
can
might-
Sean
yeah,
ask
if
his
you-
question? Yeah, Sean, why don't you go
Please.
and
And
then
then
Cheryl?
me,
Yeah.
then I have a
And then,
Yeah,
oh,
thanks.
sorry.
Yeah, mine is real simple. Nick's gonna have a meeting with our town staff in 2 weeks. Our next meeting is in 3 weeks. We should wait until the meeting occurs that Nick's going to conduct. And hear what comes from that meeting, rather than continue to discuss what might become moot or irrelevant as a result of the meeting that Nick is going to have. A lot of what we're talking about is some of it's conjecture of what could be best, but we're not really, probably not using our time as well as we could, and probably not using Carolyn's time as well as we could use Carolyn's time. If this meeting's going to occur that Nick's going to chair, we'd be in much better position to talk about the best path forward once that meeting occurs and we have a chance to hear from all the communities in Milton, the Milton staff side. Said that before in previous meetings.
Agreed,
Well, it's on the
sorry.
agenda tonight, so I
Yeah.
think it's fair that we're discussing it. And I do have
I
another
understand.
comment after you,
So-
Maggie.
I understand it's on the agenda, and I understand we are discussing it. But prior to the agenda being issued, having this meeting, we were not aware, I was not aware that Nick was having a meeting in 2 weeks with the principal of the town. How do we know that? I think we should be patient and hear what comes from that meeting before we continue this discussion.
Right.
And so I had a question on the process. So, the selectmen voted not to put this on fall town meeting. So there doesn't seem to be a rush on the town side to do anything. I understand that residents have come forward and have voiced their concerns. I hear those concerns. And, so it goes back to my original question. If there is a rush to do something, cause we have 75 of them and the neighbors are feeling the impacts, could we quickly pass a bylaw like, and just prohibit it? That's an easy enough fix to give the residents a quick, easy answer. It gives our staff, the building inspector, the right to prohibit until we can figure this out. So that was one question. My other concern is, since the select board chose not to put this on, the town meeting, as we all know, because it happened to us before with MBTA zoning, a citizen's petition was put forward. So I think the same path is gonna happen here.
Yeah.
And what we did for MBTA zoning, we did all the work. We then concluded that it wasn't worth going, and the citizens just put forward that, and then it was passed. And so I don't necessarily wanna do all the work on something that we don't really believe in right now. We haven't had any real public outreach, and even when I was reviewing the meetings, you know, if we go back to a gentleman who came into like one of the first meetings, he said, and I quote in our minutes, he does not think Airbnb should be allowed in a residential neighborhood, in any residential neighborhood. And, you know, he is right next to it. So he has not come back to follow up on that comment or follow up on what we've done so far. And also, we have not agreed to a minimum stay. In the bylaw, it says 48 hours. I'm not a fan of 48 hours. All the people that I've spoken to, and I've followed Hal's Facebook posts, but I have a pretty extensive reach with just so many random people around town who really don't know anything because they're just living their lives, and when I see them, I ask them. And I don't lead them, I don't put them on I don't have an agenda, I'm just trying to gather information. And most people that I'm talking to is they don't want turnover every single weekend. They would hope that it would be 30-day. So that's what they would like. Could they be convinced of 14 days? Maybe. So that means that their neighbor could rent it out to 2 different people in a month. They possibly could be okay with that. So I think it's kind of too premature to continue down this, mostly because I'm afraid our work is gonna be hijacked and then used against us.
So can I just get back to a question I was gonna ask? First of all, I watched the entirety of the select board meeting, and it would, Nick Milano, framed it that the planning board was not going to move this forward. And members of the select board said they respected that, but they did not want to see a delay in it. And they wanted to see this move forward for spring. So I think that characterization, Maggie, was not quite accurate from what I heard. Then the question though that I had was, because this came up in a conversation I had with someone, could the money that is received, I guess it's an excise tax, is that what it is? Does
Yes.
that go into the general fund or can,
Yes.
okay.
But complete that question, but could it?
But could it be earmarked for the, the health department and the building department, because that's where the work would be done? Or whomever it is, if it's allocated across departments, can it be restricted that way in some way and not, let's say, go for something that's totally unrelated to these?
Yes, it could. We'd have to talk about what that looks like. Sometimes a dedicated revenue stream would go into, say, like a special purpose stabilization fund. That might be more cumbersome than we really want it to be. But the reality is that the money comes in, yes, it goes into the general fund, and from there, it's then available, obviously, to be appropriated for whatever purposes. Can we say that that dollar that came in from short-term rental excise tax that went into the general fund went directly to the health department, or went directly to the building department? You don't necessarily trace it in that linear fashion, but it is still additional revenue that comes in, and it offsets, obviously, the taxpayers' burden of funding those departments. But I have seen revolving funds set up for use. Like I said, I think a special purpose stabilization fund could be something that would work. But we'd want to think about that, how that impacts budgeting, and maybe it would just have to be like an annual appropriation from that special purpose stabilization fund to fund, say, the building departments, or partially fund building and Board of Health. There are some ways to structure it that way if we really want to make sure that it's targeted.
Could it be like an enterprise fund?
No.
So I just had a question about that too, because as I started mentioning earlier, like the building department takes in a fair amount of revenue for permits, fees, especially on larger construction projects. And So those are just going to the general fund as well.
Yes.
But there is also the community impact fund that if someone owns or more than 2 properties, it can be up to 3% additional tax on top of that. And then I believe you previously said that that money needs to be shown to,
For affordable housing
yeah,
purposes.
to directly tie back to what's being affected by those. Is that-
Right,
okay.
the impacts created,
Okay.
yes.
Okay,
But we're not allowing more than 2 properties, a property owner to hold more
fair
than
point,
2.
right,
And
yep,
so you,
okay,
we
so that's not
can't
even there,
really
yep.
apply.
Yeah,
Is it 2 or
Can't use
more, or
that.
more than 2?
2 or more.
No,
More than one.
I know what,
Oh.
I know what ours says, I'm saying,
Oh.
if we say no more
Oh.
than 2, meaning they could own
Right.
2, so if someone owns 2, could we then charge that fee?
I'd have to look to
I'm
see
not trying
how
to split hairs,
that,
I'm just
how
trying to
that,
understand.
how that squares, yeah,
So I think Sean had a question, or sorry, are you looking?
no, that's okay, that's all right, I can,
Sean, if you had your hand up still?
I think I had left it up, Meredith. Yeah, I apologize.
So I guess hearing the residents who are concerned about and really, are really affected by this, their neighbors, to Maggie's point, is that without having a whole new bylaw, is there something that we can put in our zoning that says it's a simple, short-term rentals are not allowed? Put that in for fall town meeting, just a simple in our zoning, and then have the understanding that we're moving forward with regulating these, which we would then amend that, put our new use in, saying we do allow them, and then adding our general bylaw,
you could do that.
which would maybe,
I would be strongly opposed to that. I
It's a-
understand the
yeah, I'm
intent.
throwing it out as,
Yeah.
for the people who express
I think
concerns and who have
that's
problems.
a curveball that no one's discussed before right now, and I don't think that we've,
Well, I brought it up the first
Yeah,
time.
but
But,
they-
fair enough.
but on Watertown, on the Watertown's website, it says the city's zoning regulations prohibit the rental of properties for a period of less than 31 days. And those violating this ordinance are subject to fines. So they specifically say regulation. Can we have a regulation that prohibits?
I will double check, because Watertown happens to be one of my communities, I think they actually have well, they're a city now, sorry, they used to be a town. I think they actually do have an ordinance plus regulations, so I think when they use the term regulations, they're not using it the same way we've been talking about it, like in the context of, a separate Board of Health regulations.
Because they also sent me their copy of their bylaw, which was not adopted by their city council.
to your point, Maggie, though, about the experience of the MBTA and learning lessons from that, I would be concerned that if we were to do something like proposing a total ban on it now for fall meeting, that I think we would be opening ourselves up to not showing good faith to the rest of the town meeting that we've been working on this, and this is what we said we've been doing to the select board and to the members. I think that we'd be opening ourselves to that exact thing that you mentioned that we want to avoid, right? I think we want to show that we're working towards this, and this is what we've been discussing, and continue along that path.
Yeah, and I hear that, and I know how the composition of town meeting, how it would go. But to those, everybody has spoken about the residents are concerned, we've got 75 of them. So I'm just trying to protect all those residents who are concerned, even if it's just for a few months. And if it helps our town staff, then why not just do it? Even if it's just a short-term fix. But
And just to add that number of 75, we don't know if those have been recorded at different
Right.
times. We don't know how many of those are actually active right now. So it may be, somebody put it on as an Airbnb site at one point, but it's no longer. We just don't know.
I think, for fall would just go counter to what we've talked
It
about.
would be more
in terms-
confusing to,
It would be very,
Yeah,
very
to town
confusing
meeting.
and also very little time for, folks who've been following along. I mean, you said there's not been a lot of public comment, but the, Milton Times has run several articles, front page articles about it. I do think people are aware of it, and then to come suddenly and have it be a ban
Yeah.
with very little, time for any opportunity for comment, I don't think as Hal said, I don't think that is in good faith with what, we've been asked to do.
Okay, well, I just thought I would put it out there. So I think at this point, it really, to Sean's point, we have a meeting at the end of the month. In 2 weeks, Nick will have a meeting with the staff, and let's see what they come back with. And then we can continue the discussion and have a lot more information to guide Carolyn. And you've been wonderful in advising us on the various paths. And so this has been really helpful. And just the way you color coded everything, it really does. It will help, I think, when the staff looks at this, to say, okay, this could be pulled out, this could be regulations. You know, until we get into it, until we try it, we don't know. But I hear what you know, in some ways, I do like everything embedded all together, so everyone knows what our intent is, because I think this is a real important, this is a big change for our town.
And if you think about the public too, who might think that they're gonna have to watch select board, board of health and planning board meetings to follow everything that's going to affect this, I think it's a lot. You know, right now, if everything's in one bylaw and we get the feedback from the departments, as you said, and then we can continue the discussion, at least people know where to go.
Right.
To give their feedback and to get the latest information. I think it's a lot to ask folks to think about having to go to 3 different bodies for it.
Meredith, I have one last,
Yeah.
I realize we're wrapping up. I was referencing notes from the last meeting, and we discussed possibility of reaching out to Newton and Watertown.
Lexington.
To get their input from their staff. Has that happened? And if not, is there a chance that within the next 3 weeks that could happen? So that on the 27th, we could have that information?
Yeah, I could definitely try. I did try to reach out to them, but didn't hear back.
Okay.
But I can follow up
Okay.
and do my best.
That would be
Yeah.
helpful, maybe.
Just to have
For
every.
Liz going
yeah.
into the meeting too, yeah.
And if
Okay.
those communities, if you don't hear back from those communities, maybe try a couple others. And I don't know, Meredith, if you had Newton, you said Newton and Lexington, right?
Right.
Newton and Lexington were the ones that were the most similar to, you know, and
Right.
we looked at those.
Can I ask, are you looking just to find out what their experience is with administering short-term
Yeah.
rental, or just looking,
Yeah.
okay?
I know you looked at the zoning.
Yeah.
We were interested in how's it
How it's
going?
Right.
implemented.
So if anyone from Lexington's watching tonight,
I'm sure they are.
let's see TV.
Also, I'm wondering, I had sent over a list of questions from, that I gathered from different residents who happen to be attorneys, so I don't know if you had a chance to, review all those questions. And if you haven't, that's fine, but, it's really.
I was gonna say, I know Liz did send them over, and then we had a conversation, but I didn't bring them with
Yeah.
me tonight, but I do remember seeing the list, yes. But yes, we can certainly look at that, depending upon which way, I guess, the staff meeting goes. I did just wanna answer Hal's question on the community impact fee. So there is the generic vote to impose an impact fee that attaches every time a short-term rental changes over into a new occupancy. There can be a separate vote to also have a community impact fee every time a transfer occurs within a 2 or a 3 family dwelling. So I don't know if that's where folks were thinking of 2 or more. But if it is a short-term rental in a 2 or a 3 family dwelling, that also includes the operator's primary residence. We can assign a separate impact fee there. I'm not sure what impact fee you're collecting there that you're not collecting generally, but that's how the statute reads. And then 35% would have to be dedicated for affordable housing, which still leaves a fair amount left over that could be revenue streams for building, Board of Health, whatever seems appropriate.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
Sean, you have your hand up?
Thank you. It may be helpful for Nick and our town staff to have this draft file
We just lost you,
Hey,
Sean. Sorry, you were breaking up. Thank you.
I probably have to stay very close to my computer, but it may be helpful for Nick for that meeting with town staff to have the draft bylaw highlighted to clearly understand what could be in a regulation. We spoke earlier, Carolyn said section 4, section 5, and portions of section 6. I think if Nick had that in hand for that meeting, it would be helpful for him to have. Is it possible for Carolyn to give that to you, Meredith, or to, and then for you to pass it along to Nick?
Yeah, I
We
think
have it in the folder.
it's in our folder, so Avante, if you could
One,
have that.
if I could, what's in the folder, as I read it, one color is what could go into a zoning bylaw. The other color is what could go into a general bylaw. What's in the folder, I didn't see a document that was colored indicating what would go into a regulation and what would go into a bylaw.
I think that was the other color, non-yellow that you were.
The non-yellow third color I'll come up with, yes.
Okay,
and I
that
can
would
do
be
that,
great.
yes.
That would be great, and if you could send that,
Okay.
when you have a
Carolyn,
chance.
I'd suggest just create a second document, right? Just take one more document and have it be a distinction between regulation and bylaw.
Sure.
You've given us one that distinguishes between general and zoning. Now give us the same
Okay.
draft. Okay, makes sense?
Sure.
That's a good suggestion.
Thank you.
So I think,
Carolyn, that's idea of a special purpose stabilization fund. Would you be able to see if other towns have that, or is that something that we could find that information somewhere?
There should be, usually through DOR, the Department of Local Services, there should be a list, perhaps. I know that there's at least a list of communities that have created special purpose stabilization funds. I'm not sure off the top of my head if they are so specific as to let you know that this is related to a short-term rental, as opposed to, like, I see a lot of capital stabilization funds, or like a sidewalk and roads capital stabilization fund, a special ed stabilization fund. I'd have to see whether they really identify it as like a short-term rental or something that arguably could be a short-term rental stabilization fund.
Because that might be something that is of interest, particularly to the departments. And so when they meet, if we could have an idea for them that, yes, this can be set up this way, that might help.
yeah,
I'll see what I can find.
Thank you.
Sure.
great. Okay. So I think that wraps up our conversation for tonight. Carolyn, thank you so much.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
And yeah, it's always a pleasure having you.
Always a pleasure to be here, so thank you, folks.
Good, thanks. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, yes. So, so zoning for annual, town meeting discussion. So this is where we had discussed, other zoning that we would like to look at for,
Recodification?
sorry, sorry, Carolyn, yes, I'm sorry. We did have one other thing that we wanted to ask you.
I didn't want to overstay my welcome.
I know, that was too easy, I know you haven't talked in depth with Liz about it, but
Yes.
just because we had you sort of shift gears to
Right,
our
yep.
short-term rental, the recodification.
Yes.
Next steps that,
So, I have started, but I haven't gotten very far, but what I have started to do is go through like section by section to just identify things that I think, I would recommend changes. And I know we've talked about the use table, dimensional table. I have not tried to tackle that yet, but, so that would be my first phase, like get all of that to you folks. So that then we can start talking about, all right, so the zoning amendments that come from that, what are our priorities? Which ones do we want to present to a Springtown meeting first? I know we also talked a little bit about, do we just rewrite the whole thing and do a full-on repeal and replace? Little aggressive, but one long arduous process and it is done. And we aren't worrying about presenting this in piecemeal where not everything is going to align beautifully until all of the pieces fall into
Right.
place. So there's, that discussion that I think needs to take place in terms of what do you think town meeting will have the appetite for? If you decide to do a whole full-on repeal and replace, obviously rewriting the whole bylaw at one time is gonna take a little bit more time, not just from my perspective, but sharing drafts with you all and going through it and making sure that, I wanna reiterate at all times, this is not, zoning according to Carolyn Murray, it is your zoning bylaw and it should look like, feel right, and say what you all want it to say. So my plan was to get that sort of initial overview to you all, like early fall. Does that seem to work for a,
Yeah.
okay? And then from there, we can have a meeting to go through it and just talk about, okay, where do we go from here?
Right, right.
So can I just say that I was looking at one piece of property today that has underlying zoning and 2 overlay zoning districts. And these are the sections that I had to read. And each one of them, like here, and this one I had to highlight what the frontage is and what the height is and, find it in these paragraphs in all these different sections. This is what I don't think, I'm making my pitch again for what needs to happen. Then I went and I did this. And I did a chart.
Yep.
And I said, in the underlying zoning and in this overlay and in this overlay, here's the allowed use and here's the dimensional. And then I compared, I'm comparing them to one another. This is how easy it should be.
Yep.
Not all of these, right? And this took me a little bit of time to do, and this is what I'm trying to improve upon. So when I say user-friendly, this is what I mean by user-friendly. And this is what our zoning enforcement officer has to do.
Right.
And this is not efficient for them either. And this, and it makes it unclear for applicants what they can do. And it might be why property like Brook Road sits there vacant. Because somebody's gotta sit down and do all of this. And this is a priority to me.
Sure.
This is the priority in the codification to me.
And I agree with Cheryl on that, because perhaps that's my property. So I have underlying zoning and I have other zoning on top of it, and sometimes the confusion is which takes priority. And sometimes it's all 3 can take priority, but sometimes our building inspectors say that one supersedes another. And I think that's not always a correct answer, and has gotten the town into a little bit of trouble.
Okay.
So I agree with Cheryl that making it as easy as possible is beneficial for the property owner and the neighbors. Like if someone wants to buy a piece of property next to one of these properties, they know what they're getting themselves into.
Right. I do wanna ask, I completely agree that this needs to be made so much more user-friendly, because even as someone who's only been dealing with it, for a few months now, it's a little cumbersome for me to find what it is I'm looking for. As far as the overlay districts, are you, this initial phase would not necessarily change any of those existing districts. It would certainly put everything in a table and make it easier just to identify and, the use, the parking requirements, whatever it happens to be. But it wouldn't change any of your existing zoning districts. Not that we can't change the zoning districts, but when you mention something like, well, there's the underlying district, but this certain properties also have 2 overlays, do you still want all of that? And, that's not necessarily a question that has to be answered tonight, but the first phase would be make it so that we can at least understand the bylaw a little bit better as is. then you might still decide, we've got too many overlays, we've got too many zoning districts, we've got, we should consolidate a few here or there. Or maybe, as you were just saying, Cheryl, that, we've got one overlay district that we zoned it, but it hasn't resulted in any development that we hope to attract. Why is that? Maybe there are reasons or just provisions that need to be addressed, or maybe it's time to throw that particular overlay out.
Well, you're going to find that there's a number of sections that are really specific to projects.
Yes,
And
yes.
so they got put into the back at a certain point because it's like, why is it something here when it really only applies somewhere? I'd like your advice about what to do with that. And I would like things that are, the overlays, unless you know about them in some instances, they're not on the maps that easily, not easy to find. They're certainly not in the GIS mapping, which I doubt is the official map, right? We just
It has to be
adopted
a
a
zoning
map.
map, right?
Yeah, and, we might need to look at that mapping, because I think, that's another piece of it, is the map. Like, how do you know which overlays apply where, unless you're in the know?
Right.
And that's a problem. I think, like, to Maggie's point, somebody buying a piece of property, like, I spoke to someone, who said, I thought we were buying a two-family, because it was built as a two-family, but it's been used as a single, and somehow now that the building official says it's a two. Well, these are the things that homeowners don't want to find themselves in that position of thinking they purchased something that's not what they purchased. So I think that, that may be a little bit different in terms of the details, but it's important in terms of being able to find the information and have everything as clear as possible, what people can do with the property. And, this property, Maggie, that I'm talking about is that Brook Road property, but again, there you have pre-existing non-conforming, which is another one of the topics that we feel like we wanted to address. Right next to it are a couple of businesses that have been businesses since the 50s, and yet it's an RC district. And so, as we're looking at it, the zoning, I think in some ways, we're gonna have to look at the map a little bit too. And to your point about what still makes sense and what doesn't make sense. But I still think in terms of the first step is just, having it be that the information is better organized.
And I
The
think.
next steps are changes.
Right, and then I think those will become apparent,
Yeah.
so.
Right.
And then also, like, some of these could, like, be changed because didn't the legislature, somebody just
Legislature
passed
has been very
the
busy, yes.
Yes.
some variance,
Yeah.
process. So now all of a sudden, if my understanding is correct, getting a use variance, has changed dramatically.
Yes.
So a lot of businesses might not have to rely on, zoning changes. They could just go and argue the case in
Yep,
front of the
and
ZBA.
and the economic development bill got referred to a conference committee between the House and the Senate. So it didn't die on July 31st when the legislative session changed, or when it ended. So we may still see changes to site plan review. We may see duplexes for everybody. It's gonna be interesting to see what comes out of this. Yes, you're right. Those are like just the easy ones to pick out right now, that your variance section absolutely needs to be changed. Or even though you didn't previously allow use variances, you can now grant them for a residential purpose.
Good, so I think that's a good plan.
Okay.
Shoot for the fall, so for
Perfect.
getting an initial draft, so. I think that's great. Any other questions on that? And then we really will let you go now.
No, that's okay.
Thank you, but that was on
going to
our
say, would you
list
like me to stay?
For
But,
annual, for zoning town meeting, that was, yes, one of the things
All right,
We're
well,
hoping
thank you
to-
very
to
much.
get done.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good night. Okay.
Good night.
So, looking at the draft of the things that we had spoken about, because I do think the recodification needs to be a real priority for us. I don't know what type of time commitment that's gonna take from our board. I think we'll know more when we see Carolyn's draft. But we have a number of projects that we have been discussing. And we talked about sort of ranking them short-term, medium, and long-term goals. Do we want to,
Do you have a new list there, Meredith?
no, this is based on our
The
old.
matrix in the last
The
page.
matrix and our last, yeah, the
So
Milton
this-
Board
this la-
planning.
This last page or a
Yeah.
different one?
I
Yeah,
think,
this is what I,
Okay.
yeah.
If you want, I can pull that
Do you
up.
wanna pull that up? That would be great.
Is your thought to rank these tonight, Meredith?
Well, maybe we,
Can I continue before you answer?
yes, go ahead. You have a suggestion, yes.
Well, although I recognize we have Avante with us and he's super talented, but doing this without Liz might not be the best approach. But it's your call.
I think some of these we have more familiarity with than Liz because they've been kicking around for a while. So I think we could take a first pass and then review with Liz, of course.
Yeah, I think some of the things that because we have put together priority lists in the past. You know, I would say the open space and recreation plan, that's something that we need to get grant money for. It's in the final stage,
So we can.
but that's not really on our board per se,
So
but.
on that, it is funded by us. And we've received emails from residents about it, so I'm wondering if we could have the consultant come in and give an overview and how they're going to incorporate the comments that we've been receiving and that came from these new gatherings that you've had, Avanti. Because it's a little unclear to me how it all kind of comes together and who approves this plan? Is it the planning board that approves the plan? I'm assuming
I
that a
think it's
board
going to
has
be,
approved.
well, I think the committee will give it its blessing, you know, say this is
And then
correct.
recommend it to.
And then recommend it to the select board is
Is
what
that where it goes?
So, if
Okay.
my understanding is there's two different consultants, right? You have the park and rec consultant, so.
That's different, the
That's a
tag
different
and
study,
bond,
yeah.
that's a whole different, that's like a
That's-
micro
that's-
version
but
of
that-
this.
But that is, that will be in the Horsley Witten one, right?
I hope it will get, that's what I have a question, we have not met again to find out how those recommendations get incorporated into, cause right now, I don't think they are gonna get incorporated. I think they're gonna stay separate. But some of the overall suggestions, I mean, it makes sense for Horsley Witten to, you know, to see that report.
Because the Parks Department one is focused solely, my understanding is focused solely on existing spaces and maximizing the spaces that we already
Yeah.
have, right?
That's
Is that
what it looks
a
like, that's
fair-
what it appears,
So
yes.
it's, not at all to minimize it, but to reorient sports fields and courts to maximize the space
And it's
to the
really
needs.
field focused, it's not
open
like-
space necessarily.
It's not the Egan Center for swimming, it's not the hockey program,
It's not
it's,
really recreational, it's field.
it's a real field focus.
Yeah, splitting.
But incorporate, yeah.
Yeah, yes,
It's not like the hockey recreation.
yes, right, right.
So Meredith, then, I'd like to get a better understanding of the plan, maybe before it's forwarded to the select board.
Yeah, I think we could,
Maybe-
and really is sort of a high level, and what I think I'll do is provide a draft, maybe we'll have a draft for
Okay.
our board to be able to review. And then we can maybe take questions back,
That would be
as I,
great,
as a
yeah.
representative, could take those questions back if you think
That would
something's
be great,
missing.
yeah.
So,
And is
I
that?
agree.
Is that ultimately something, it goes to the select board and then stops, or is it? Okay, this is all a little bit before I was.
yeah, it's like
We don't have to get into it.
similar to the economic development plan. Procedurally, I'll have to find out if it needs to be accepted at town meeting, or, you know, how that,
Because, for example, the housing production plan is voted on by both the select board and the planning board. And that's why I was just asking,
Yeah.
are we being asked to vote on a plan? And if we are, then I'd like to review a draft,
Definitely.
And I think what you said about that, having a draft, sending questions back would be great.
Yeah.
The same, on the economic development plan, since both boards are involved in that, we need to keep the dialogue about how our input and their input gets incorporated.
Right.
Is it another joint meeting or how does that work? But
And and those recommendations, but we certainly do want to sort of wrap that up because, the requirements by the state, it's actually a state required to get grant funding for
for the open space.
the open space plan. So it's a little more high level, but we do wanna sort of get that completed as soon as possible. And the aspects of, the recommendations that will be in there, will be guidance for CPC, for example. I know the Conservation Commission came and wanted money funded to be able to put conservation easements on properties and or even do what, I don't know if it was Cohasset, what town did it, but they've been doing slowly incrementing, having a little savings to buy land, if some open space for a field or for whatever it is. But the CPC felt strongly that they didn't want the Conservation Commission to have that funding. So I think if it's in sort of recommendations, it helps to guide the CPC because I think, in my opinion, is, because you're on the you're the representative now, is that it's not just for recreation and recreation of ball fields, it is for protecting open space. A lot of communities use that. I think it was, and that's why I'm trying to remember, one
Yeah, I
of the
remember
South Shore
this
towns
conversation. I don't-
just bought 114 acres that they're putting a preservation restriction on and for preserving open space. So just throwing it out there that this will be a more high level, but I think we should have a draft to
Yeah.
for us to weigh in on, and then I'll find out if we need to vote on it, and as well as the committee, and then should it go to the planning board and, certainly, the select board as well.
So
Alright,
if we wanna give our top three, I think,
Yeah.
we should focus on, FARs,
FAR, we've talked about,
site plan for town projects. And maybe I can't do three. Of course, I like pre-existing non-conforming and cut and fill. There's only a part that I have personal interest in and I would have to recuse myself. But probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, I made a proposal to how to amend that, so that would be pretty easy amendment. And I like low impact design. I think that's important on a lot of projects.
I
Do you-
heard, sorry.
no, sorry, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
Avanti, do you wanna keep a track of a list of these? Maybe we just have, and then we come back, we sort of narrow it down, and to Sean's point, we want Liz to also be involved, but a lot of these we have talked about. Cut and fill, we've talked about forever, but
Yeah, so the cut and fill, I think, requires restarting conversations because, I participated, this is how long ago it was, with Dennis
Yeah.
Swenson and Joe Prondak and I think Maria Fernandez when she was the town engineer. But it requires their input, so does low impact design. And so I think we have to put that into the category of what is the capacity of the town to do it. But I'm happy to kind of get my notes back out and kind of give you an update on where we got with cut and fill conversation. I think the reason we've had that on the list is with some of the projects we've reviewed. feeling like we didn't have anything to kind of sink our teeth into about saying, wow, this is just too much cut and fill, too much retaining wall, too much impact, too close to neighbors, that kind of thing. So I do think, the thing is that there is a cut and fill bylaw already, and it's like one size fits all. So when it gets triggered, it might get triggered on a smaller piece of property because of the volume, but not on a larger one and the one I always refer to is, it's out on the very end of Canton Avenue, right before it makes the bend to Brush Hill Road. And I remember reaching out to Joe Prondak about that, because it's a lot of fill there. And, it had no review, really. And so, anyway,
So maybe we could improve that, you think, for,
so I
we could do
think,
that for
yeah, but I
spring?
don't, that's my top, and so I'm not putting that one on my top, but it's on my radar, yes. My top is, and I don't know if it's gonna lead to zoning amendment, but Brook Road. It's been vacant, it's been vacant for what, 10 years? I started to
agree with
look
that.
at the zoning just to show us what the zoning is, nothing else right at the moment. And it's a blight, and the health department's been called on it, and I think it's one of those things that, we should act on. So that would be my
I
first.
would love to see that done.
Yeah,
Now, can't the homeowner, I mean, the property owner come with a,
We did,
proposal?
Liz was gonna reach out, I don't know if she's heard back, to invite them to,
I just wanna show everybody, I did a little analysis to show what the zoning is and where what problems might be, to at least help us understand if we need to guide, if we could guide the property owner into something, just to see, so that we understand what we've got there as our underlying zone, as our three
So-
zoning districts.
what they came to Liz with initially, so it's zoned, MBTA zone, it allows for three units on that.
Right, it's the Blue Hill Ave, and the Blue Hill Ave is 30 units an acre. I read them all today. Part of my demonstration here of what, I read it. So the Blue Hill Ave is different than the Elliott Street corridor in terms of
Okay,
density.
maybe- Liz was, so what they suggested, what they would like to do is 7 townhomes
So you can.
on that site.
So you can see, well, do
And
you
maybe
wanna talk, we can talk about that if you'd like.
Maybe we should talk about that with Liz here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be something to go in depth, but I completely agree. I would love to see us work with that property owner and try to get something.
I would like.
I have a suggestion for this discussion. We have 16 listed here. Instead of trying to pick the top 3, I'd suggest we pick the top 5, then the second 5, and then the remaining 6 would be in the third category. So maybe it would be just what you said when you started this conversation, forget
Short term,
how you phrased it.
medium term,
Short-term,
long term.
mid-term, long-term, but instead of trying to pick 3, because I think it's hard for us to agree on 3, but we probably would agree on maybe 5, that should be the top 5. And then the next 5, and then the remaining 6 would be, we think.
So what I would say is that not all of these require town meeting approval. For example, our rules and regs, the subdivision rules and regs. I believe those are just a planning board. So.
We have so little, Cheryl, we have so little time between now and town meeting. I'm not sure there's much we could accomplish for town meeting. Right?
For spring?
No, for the, I'm sorry, I thought you were thinking of the fall.
I don't know, this is
for
for
spring.
spring. And, to me, some of these, are things that we've identified from things we've seen, but as I said before, I'd be surprised if we can't agree that we should address property that's been vacant for over 10 years and being condemned by the Board of Health.
So let's put that in the top 5. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I would
But just
suggest
as
cutting
just as a note though, so are we going to do with that with all properties around town? if like I drive around town and I'm like, oh, well, that's an underutilized property, should I say, oh, we need to do something to make that not underutilized?
I don't say do something, but try and understand what
Why?
we think
Why?
might be the issues.
Why it's been vacant for 10 years.
And then, I'd say, whatever Adams Street is where the red hat house, the
Swift
Swift
Hat
hat
Shop.
house is another one,
That's-
because we know that they wanted to come forward with a proposal. In fact, I spoke to, the owner probably in March.
And I just spoke
he
to him
said-
last week, and I
Yeah.
wanna sit down and,
And he wants to do something, so, you know, the paper mill we did work on, that's been vacant. I mean, it's better than doing something where that's already functioning well, right? Why
So
wouldn't
it's,
we?
I don't have a problem reaching out to people, cause I think that's, but do we officially as a board do that, or do, you know, we call them up and say, you know, have an offline conversation?
Well, I think it would be great if Liz and Avanti could take the lead on that. Reach out to these property owners where it's vacant, you know, that there's that property on Smith Road where there was a sign out there that they were gonna be doing a project there, and like, oh, really? You know, it's like, these are the properties where,
and it was condemned.
well, you know that something's going to eventually happen, or you might want something to happen. These are the things that neighbors would appreciate us spending time
Right.
on.
So let's do a rank 1, 2, or 3 on these, if that, does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, let's stop at the top, let's start at the top, future zoning bylaw and regulations amendments. That, I see as a longer term, because we need to let Carolyn do that research, so.
So that's the recodification.
The
Okay,
recodification,
okay.
yeah, so, and then from the recodification, what zoning do we wanna make any changes? So I see that as a 3.
Yeah.
Condominium conversions,
Remember, this was something because of the concern of properties, larger homes on being purchased and being made into 40Bs.
Right.
And if you lower the minimum lot size for condo conversion from 10 acres to something less, do nothing else even, but it might mean that you're not gonna get a larger house.
It also helps preserve that historic building.
Historic building, right.
The character of that, right? But I think it was also in the housing production plan information that was sent out.
is it possible?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
sort of like the borough estates.
Exactly. I mean, they added some
So
units,
Is that a 2?
I would say
Or
a
1
2,
or 2?
a 2, okay?
For now,
to look
till
at
you
it.
go through the list.
I'd argue 1, but 1.5.
We had there was a lot of resistance, we had those come before the historical commission.
That was because we were going to allow more units on some of those in that long ago version. But this, right now, what I'm suggesting is just the acreage. Because I think it's a real shame that those couple of homes are getting altered or demolished and becoming those big 40Bs when it may have been prevented if they could have done something else.
I do disagree that a 40B developer would not.
Okay, well,
the-
we can
but
move
maybe
along. and
somebody else
we'll
would've
move on
bought
to
it, though.
Let's
13 right now.
let's stay on task.
Let's
Let's
go.
identify 1, 2, or 3.
Okay, West Milton Brook Road overlay, we said 1 on that.
1,
Pre-existing non-conforming uses,
1, in my opinion,
And you're talking about the commercial use.
commercial. Yeah.
And what about like the 2 families or 3s that are non-conforming? You put that in there?
Yeah, I would say that. I think
Okay.
if there are,
I'm fine with the
Yeah,
1 on
3
that too then,
families.
Maggie.
Yeah.
I'll join you.
I agree. I'd go 1 there.
okay. Cut and fill. Is that a 2?
2, 3.
I think a 2, I don't think a down a 3.
Say a 2. 3 is too far away. Make it a 2, I think.
I agree on a 2.
Floor area ratio,
1 or 2.
I think if we combine that with dimensional standards, so if the one further down, dimensional for accessory, we just, instead of having that separate, do floor area ratio / dimensional standards. And I think what this is going to take is, like I tried to do so far, is looking at Brook Road, is understand what we've got and see what we've got allows before we can know what we're going to change. So I think it requires a little bit of study. So that's why I might give it a 2, because I don't think we would be ready
It's
for
a little bit-
spring.
yeah.
It
So
just
taking a look at what we have right now, visualizing that in some manner, and then just having a discussion.
Yeah,
kind of, and then from that, see where we would want to go. And I'm a little concerned that might be tough for spring with other things. So are you good with a 2 on that, Maggie?
I'm good with the 2.
And did we say cut and fill was 2 as well?
Yes.
Okay.
so parking requirements, I sort of see that
Before you
follow.
go to that, the business zone,
Oh, business zoning, sorry,
that
districts.
I thought should wait until the economic development plan.
Yeah, but perhaps,
Perhaps
you
a
know,
2.
you're in the East Milton Neighborhood Association, maybe you should start floating that to them.
2 to 3.
What do they want?
There's 2 layers to that. One is just capturing buildings that have been commercial a long time.
Existing, yeah.
Yeah, and then another is to think about whether there's any other boundary beyond it. But I see it as 2 different, it might be 2 different, like, votes or something on a map. Just because
Yeah,
it.
because and I hear what you're saying, the East Milton Neighborhood Association or East Milton residents were very vocal about keeping our overlay very specific to where we landed on that.
But remember, the underlying zoning is different than the overlay, the
Right,
map. And
right.
that's what I think, I'm talking about the commercial.
But the question, what it does change is the permit process for let's say 10 Bassett Street, it would have been a very different process where the neighbors and the abutters would have had less of a say, I think, if it was just,
So
maybe
that's
if
why
I
that
write-
I think is an offline discussion at first.
So maybe this should say,
Yeah.
this should say business zoning district, not just the boundaries. Because
Yeah.
remember, we spoke about like the parking requirements or other things. So we did a lot of work on the overlay, we did nothing on the underlying business zoning. So I think, and that would apply to all the business districts, not just East Milton.
so business district.
So it's the zoning and the boundaries. But I do think that it should be informed by the economic development study.
I don't think we're gonna be able to tackle that
So do that as a first.
I would say 3, and not because I don't think it's important, but I just think the timeline
So the parking requirements that are listed down below that would just all be part of the business.
yeah,
That's
So I'm
not a-
combining sort
Not a
of-
separate one.
right, those 2 would be connected.
I would love to get that as a 2, but I see that we have a lot of 2s, so I guess a 3.
And the dimensional requirements for accessory structures.
We just
doing that with the
combined
floor,
that,
yes,
yep.
so that's with that. The small cellular, so this is something Katie Conlon spoke to me about. This is something that was a requirement, a federal requirement that really, we can't really regulate cell towers, but we can't say no to them. We had that recent application. They can be really unattractive, they can be noisy, and so when it was coming down, Katie Conlon was chair of the select board and said, she was on the Mass Municipal Lawyers Association, and there was a big buzz about this, cause everybody was panicking, saying, we don't have a choice. So the select board immediately put through, it was sort of an emergency regulation on this, but she said it really doesn't address the aesthetics of these towers. So she really pushed, excuse me, and Tim also. Excuse me, sorry, just something. And Tim also had said this is something that the select board had wanted to do at the time. So, I don't know, it's something that I think is simple, but maybe we should ask Carolyn about this.
Is this tied to scenic roads or anywhere?
Anywhere in town.
Anywhere.
And it's,
So they just did the ones in Hillside
Yeah,
Neighborhood Association. Those were approved by the select board, but have they started to put those in
I
yet?
haven't seen it, cause one's right across from my house and I haven't seen them.
Okay.
but is the idea, what is, I understand what small cellular is, and I understand the desire to affect the aesthetics of them, but what would this,
It's placement, and that's what I'd have to ask Carolyn,
Okay.
what can we, what aesthetic constraints can we require? Location, size, what, I'm not exactly sure what we have control over, but Katie certainly suggested that we get this in,
And
because,
it is disturbing, when my windows are open, I can hear it buzzing, at night.
yeah, okay. So I would say, let's hold off on that and just ask Carolyn, are there other towns who have done this?
Okay.
Because maybe it's something simple we could advance, but. And then similar battery storage and solar,
You gonna ask her about that?
we should ask about that too.
I mean, this is like the solar fields or something?
And the storage, it's sort of an aesthetic where those battery storage can go,
Okay.
I think. But I think we should ask Carolyn about that. And I think Liz brought this one to us, or
Okay.
It was something
recommended
that
this.
passed state level that we were, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't it? I think, that's what I remember.
Yeah, I think it's connected to like a consolidated permit pathway that towns and cities are supposed to be able to provide applicants if they choose to go. And the deadline for that is October 1st. So I think because of that, Liz brought it up. And so, yeah, I know me and Liz still have more questions about that,
All right, so let's, we'll have
Okay,
an
so-
ask on that too. Okay. Site plan for town projects.
I think the first thing there is to understand what other communities have.
Yeah.
Wanna do some research, Maggie?
I would say, yeah, let's look at that and say maybe a two, do we have a lot of twos on that? Or is that a 3?
Well, I mean, for site plan for town projects, Hal and I were going at it this afternoon on Facebook about the generator at the library. And so I don't think it's appropriate to have a generator in front of a building, especially a historic building. I'm not against a generator at the library, I'm just against the placement of it. So if, and I voted
And if we
to
had site
support
plan-
it, and if I voted to support it at town meeting, but I just don't think that's an appropriate place, and they had, just today, they removed, plant material, they exposed the transformer, they got rid of all these, mature inkberries around the transformer. So I just don't think it's an appropriate place, and when I believe Capital approved it, they didn't know where it was going. So, to me, that's an important thing. A lot of people have contributed a lot to that library with the addition, the renovation, and it's really one of the, it's such a pretty building, and everybody.
It's one of the most beautiful buildings in our town.
It is, and so as a town, we learned just from town hall what happened. They demoed one of our historic town buildings, and we got town hall, which, some people probably think it's attractive, so I don't want to say that it's not. But I think having site plan for town projects is important.
I agree with the review, the site plan of the town project. I would say that's probably 2 in my book. Not to go down a rabbit hole, and we can continue this conversation all night. I did speak with the library director today. He did say that they explored multiple options. I think that he might have said even a dozen different locations on the site. This is the most ideal and least intrusive and disruptive, and was within budget. He did also express that there's a design that they have to screen it and to conceal it as best we can. But I understand the points that have been made, but I also think that there's a reason why they're doing that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to cost. So my understanding is it's another $300,000 to put it behind the building.
And
So
to
it-
disrupt the parking to dig that up
Yeah,
and, right?
so I do, it comes down, like everything in life, it comes down to the finances.
So the question I would have on the site plan review is how binding is it? And like what, is it advisory? But even advisory, I think, like when we reviewed, the fire station, I don't remember if it was the planning board or the master plan implementation committee, because they came to both, but, I think it was the MPIC, because they were only thinking about that project and nothing beyond it. And, it's part of a, civic complex here. And we had made the suggestion, well, there should be, a sidewalk that connects the Council of Aging to Town Hall. And, they can, and get to the basketball court. And I was by last week, and there was a class going on in the basketball court from the Council on Aging. But it's simple things like that, which don't necessarily have to cost a lot. I mean, it's not about, the task of the building committee, which is much more, obviously, more informed, but just to kind of think about the
A
things
big,
that,
like, whole picture
Yeah.
kind of.
whole
right,
picture
yeah,
beyond
yeah.
their project,
And it might
yeah.
not be, maybe we ask Carolyn about this, because maybe it's just simple language that gets added to our current site plan review.
Yeah, so that's why I don't
Amending
know.
that bylaw to incorporate town,
Yeah,
And early enough, I've heard you
Right.
guys make comments that perhaps the fire building
Yeah,
did come
it
in
was
here, but it was
pretty
pretty
far
late.
along.
To have it come in pretty earlier in the process.
right?
well, we haven't reviewed Atherton and we didn't review East Milton. So, maybe you can reach out to Brian and see if we can review Atherton's site plan at least as a cooperation amongst departments and committees,
Yeah,
right?
and that's still in the
To start
design
with.
phase, so
Yeah, but
that's not gonna go to, that's not gonna be ready for fall town meeting, because it's still in the design phase. So I think that would be, yeah, that would be great. I'll reach out to Brian.
So
Because,
back on task.
because.
I would say two. Would
Yeah,
you
sorry,
be,
John.
you were joking
Two.
about Maggie doing research, but if that's something
No,
that,
I was actually, I was kind of saying jokingly, because I don't like to volunteer anybody else to do something, but,
Well, winter runs
if you-
slow.
If you have time, I
There you go.
think it'd be
There you go.
beneficial.
Yep, I think that's great. All right, 2 on that. Short-term rentals, 1. Low impact design.
so I understand what that is. How does that, what does that look like?
It goes into like the rules and regs, I
Okay.
think, because right now, like there's stormwater, when we get the applications, we haven't had one yet, Hal, that you've reviewed yet, but like on the memory care, they come in with the stormwater design, and it has these big structures, and like out at Wolcott Woods, they had a big field in front, they tore up that entire field for those Caltech things. And it just, low impact design would allow you to do rain gardens, and like at the library, they have that, that rain garden in the parking lot, so, there's a little less of the structures, and plus it breaks up the parking lot. That's what that is, bioswales, I don't know technically what the one at the library is, but stormwater is obviously reviewed by the town engineer, and there's stormwater regs. That's why I said it's really not something for us alone. But on those projects, we could only just encourage it, right, because we had nothing to point to. And so sometimes people take our encouragement, and sometimes
We
they don't.
encourage under the site plan review. I would say 3 on this, because we'll have to think about how we
Yeah.
would do that, I think. Subdivision rules and regs, I think that's something that would be great to look at. I would say a 3. Because
that's
we can,
a-
right now, we can always waive those things, and we really haven't had many subdivisions.
Not
Come.
lately, like
And if it did come before us, we could give a waiver right now.
our pavement width requirement and right-of-way width is way too wide. We require sidewalks on both sides, but then people
Yeah.
ask for waivers. They're just,
agree.
those,
I agree.
like all that pavement, when we say we want tree canopy, well. And street trees, I don't remember the requirement there, but like Boston now is requiring street trees to provide, shade on sidewalks and impervious areas as much as possible. So if you were gonna plant trees on your property, they say, move them closer to the property line or into the sidewalk so you can get, cover. So that's another thing, that the dimension between the tree and the pavement should be looked at in our standard section
I had
under
a
that.
customer today come up because his project is in the seaport, so he was looking for sizable trees. And it's a big project, 'cause they have to they're replacing trees and they have to, pull out the grates and possibly remove some, concrete to accommodate. Cause so they're going larger, so I mean, really, it's not on this list, but we need a tree bylaw.
Yes,
Put it on the list.
Yeah.
let's add it, we should,
You
and,
know, and their requirement, I mean, Meredith did love it, they
And
were
Newton
looking
has
for
a grid.
Princeton elms, you know, at least 15 feet in
oh,
height.
good. Where is
So,
this?
It was in the Seaport,
Oh.
and, so I think they're being
Need a tree.
required to go bigger, and so they start
And Newton,
off-
we know, has a really good,
Yeah.
really strong
yes.
tree bylaw.
Yeah.
I think that was Ellen Anselone who did mention that one. Okay.
Boston also, has new tree regulations. So like if you're doing a project and they have you calculate your, total caliper of tree being removed of a certain size, I think it might be 8-inch caliper, 6-inch caliper. And then if you're not replacing that amount, you have to, contribute to a fund that puts trees elsewhere in the city. So, I know that Conservation Commission has something like that, but we've talked about whether,
But their jurisdiction is only conservation land,
Right.
yes, so this would be a priority, I think this would,
but that, would that come under a separate bylaw, or does it come under the
Low impact.
low
Is that what you-
impact, or does it get tied
I
together?
think it could be specific
Yeah, I
to
think
trees.
it could be separate,
Okay,
I think Newton's is separate.
so subdivision rules and regs, what number did you give that?
3.
It's been on my list for 10 years.
I know. And then tree bylaw, I would move that up to,
Scenic roads is at least.
and scenic roads, that's been a problematic, we don't have any fines, we don't have a clear, it's very vague.
That's only us, so that could be a 1, that doesn't have
And
to
his-
go to town meeting.
Yeah, and historical commission, like, usually makes recommendations on that
Right,
to the planning board. So it goes to the historical commission and to the,
Let's make it a 1.
I think we do,
It's been on there for 10
I
years.
think we can make it a 1, I don't think it's a big,
yeah, I don't think it is either,
large amount of work.
and I bet Carolyn has a good one, so.
And the tree bylaw, you wanted to make a 1? It'll be 5 1s. How many 2s do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4,
We have 4 2s.
1.
Tree bylaw could be 2,
That could be 2.
since it's
Yeah,
it's
tree
new and
bylaw
we
could be
could
2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
think ahead, maybe that could be fall of next year.
yeah.
Yeah, so Newton, I was just looking it up, says that if tree has 40 inches around, can cost the builder $33,000 in fees.
They're really
Mhm.
tight, they're very tight with it.
Something that's not on here, but when I was looking at the MBTA community zoning for the parkway, for the Brook Road, we incorporated in there, that design guidelines could be developed. And I'm not suggesting that because we haven't had an application, but I think it should be on the radar screen to develop design guidelines for the districts.
I think that's a good 3.
It's a 3, yeah, unless we start getting some applications that we see some things that we wanna address it sooner,
Right.
but.
Great, okay,
So ones, we've got West Milton, Brook Road, pre-existing, short-term rentals, scenic road regs, and is that it?
Mm-hmm.
So on the pre-existing,
Right.
just to clarify, it's business and residential.
Okay.
The non-conforming. And on the 2s, the fluororacial dimensional standards also includes accessory structures, and then the business includes the parking. Just to be clear, that's a 3. And then we'll wait for guidance on small cellular and battery storage and solar.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's a good list, I think that's.
can I just show you what I did, just not to go in a lot of detail, but I just want to highlight what I sent late today, quickly on
Yep,
Brook Road?
yep.
Okay, so it won't, I won't get into a ton of detail.
Because I think that when Liz and I we were talking, thought it was 3 units per acre, and if it's 30, then maybe we could work with that developer on the town, because I love the idea of the townhome
There you go.
concept, because I think
You wanna put it up
we're
again?
missing that sort of housing type in Milton,
So,
where people want their own individual
Well, Cheryl,
front
if you're
doors.
talking
Can
to
you
the
pass this around?
developer,
Yeah.
tell them.
I'm not, I haven't talked to
I know, but tell them
them.
the style I envision there is like Islington.
It was very classic what I saw.
That's what,
Sorry.
Three
like,
plans and
that's what I
three,
kind of
and 3 of these.
So-
I have 1, 2, 3 of these, yep, so
You
let me
have
pass.
3 of these.
Let me see, and that Maggie, and I have 3 of
Three of those,
this.
okay,
Yep, so let me
No,
take
I have
1 and
three
pass
of these.
those down too.
alright,
And Cheryl,
But the people,
Monty, are you able to pull that up?
yeah.
the whole,
The whole building,
set the
yeah.
whole, it's all white, it's
Oh,
a
yeah,
white
yeah,
classic
yeah.
New England
It's very, yeah, well, that was one of the ones that would,
at the
Mm-hmm.
art center, that's what this was.
yeah. Okay, so I just wanted
Are you
to,
sure this is under that, the 30 units per
yeah, I
acre?
looked, well, alright, so you really want to, can you go to the Town of Milton website, the GIS? And then, here's the MBTA zoning. I pulled this off today, and the Parkway sub-district, the Blue Hills Parkway Corridor sub-district has units per acre of 30. I'm gonna look at the chart.
Yeah.
I'll show you the map when Avanti brings
Okay.
that up.
There we go, and
So
But this
then,
is only what, 16,000 square feet, it's not an easement.
right, so that's, you back it out and it allows 11.5. But what I wanted to show is here, okay, so that's
you,
the,
yeah.
if you, is that the website?
no, this is just what you printed, let me go to,
If you could go to the website, it'd be useful to see this tool, which Alan Bishop added, which is great, it's a layer for the districts.
go to this one.
Are they talking about combining lots there?
Well,
I mean,
No.
with the foodie and the the service station?
No, that would only be on, what was the Knights of Columbus?
so you see,
And the- Next to it.
you see zooming in there, that green is the Blue Hills Parkway sub-district, and it includes this property, the Brook Road property. You could just scroll down a little bit more.
it's right there, Bird, yeah.
Oh, sorry, did I,
Do I-
Yeah, pan up there, Brook Road,
a little bit further down there,
Further down, okay.
right there.
yeah, right there. Okay, so that's the Blue Hills Parkway and,
Not in green.
well,
No, it's right
It's
here.
over- It's over.
it's number 9.
It's right here.
Number 9.
So this was the old house that was a mess, and this was the Knights of Columbus right
I'm just showing that that's the district, but if you look at this map that you have here, it's number 9 Thatcher.
Yeah.
So it has the old Knights of Columbus and the house is Meredith said. So that property is zoned RC, so single family. And the requirements, are what's allowed under single family is 1 unit, 7,500 square foot minimum lot size, frontage of 75 feet, which this property doesn't have. And then it has the front at 20, front yard setback at 20 feet, rear at 30, and sides at 10. Heights at 2.5 feet, 2.5 stories and 35 feet. Then there's a Brook Road overlay, but it has a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. That's why it's in red on my spreadsheet. it doesn't conform, and it's a frontage requirement of 150 feet. So the reason that those things are off now is when the zoning was written, it contemplated that you would include 3 Laurel, which is to the right of this property. So you can't use the Brook Road because it doesn't meet those requirements. So you can't do single family because it doesn't have the adequate frontage. So then you go to the MBTA overlay, and it's, as you said, Maggie, 16,655 square feet, which would allow 11 and a half units by math on the acreage, on the density. The minimum lot size is 6,000, which this has, the frontage 50 feet, which it has. And then the setbacks, front and rear of 20 feet, and the sides, a sum of 20, minimum of 5. So it could be 5 on one side, 15 on the other, it could be 10 and 10. There's an FAR requirement in the MBTA communities of 0.5. So you could do 8,328 square feet. And then there's a 50% open space requirement. So that would be the same number, 8,328. And you can do 2.5 stories and 35 feet. So I think the controlling dimensional standard here is probably the FAR. You would have some pretty small units, some very small units, with 8,328 square feet and 11 units, so.
So what's that?
So that's what they want to do is 7 units, is what, they wanted 7 townhomes. So,
So they would have to make sure they meet the setbacks, and if they can't meet the
and I
setbacks.
think they were in the
then-
I think the setbacks were fine.
So then.
So we
if
should
the-
really have this conversation when
Yeah,
Liz is here,
yeah.
because she has the
So
exact.
that's, I just, so Liz can take a look
Yeah.
at this. And then I just did these other properties because they're all zoned for RC, but none of them are single family. So I actually think it's a shame that the businesses, so this comes back to the pre-existing non-conforming, Maggie, that the businesses there are zoned RC, single-family residential. So if we think about Brook Road, we might want to think about those parcels as well. And so it's not just siloed, like the conversion, we talked about them kind of siloed but when you start looking at examples, they're not really. So I'm glad we put both of those as number ones, because in this particular location, we can look at them together, I think. And then I also just wanted to show that like the 148 Blue Hill Ave is 4 units on,
Little Parkway.
I'm sorry, Blue Hill Parkway. I wrote that incorrectly, sorry about that, I gotta fix that. It's not Avenue, it's Parkway on all of those that I wrote for Blue Hill. But and then there's some 2 families next to that, and then the church, and they own also 174 Blue Hills Parkway. And all of those are in the Parkway MBTA zoning. So
This is great.
Yeah, it's something, whether we would want to think anything beyond just purely 9 Thatcher, that it's good to have the context.
Great.
So that's all for tonight, I think.
Okay, yeah,
On that.
that's great, and I think, let's share that with Liz and have a follow-up conversation maybe with that, because it is a blight on the town, and I think we should work to try to see what we can do to get that pulled together, so thank you, I appreciate that. So now we can move to item 6. Hal, you have a CPC update, you could, for the board?
Yep, let me just join, now let me present. Share. Screen. Okay. Yes, so since April, the CPC, the Community Preservation Committee, has had several meetings. And I'm catching up to speed and trying to fill some big shoes with Cheryl being on the committee. My understanding is right now, the process is that we have received a certain number of applicants, and at this point, we are just determining if these applicants are eligible or not eligible. And then in the fall, there will be subsequent applications submitted, viewed by the board, and ultimately decided upon for spring town meeting to bring to before the larger body to vote yes or no on them. So I just want to give a quick update in terms of where we stand with that, the number of applicants that have come in, and just kind of give an overview. So I appreciate you
Great.
let me bring this up. So 22 total applicants thus far. My understanding is this is the largest number of applicants to date. That's a reflection on the success of the committee advertising this and the success of the projects that have come thus far. And so the other individuals on the committee that have been on there before are overjoyed and you know, in a good way overwhelmed with the number of applicants coming in, and that's just really a reflection on how well we've done with this as a town. $5.94 million were requested of the CPA by those 22, with a total of $22 million for the total project costs. And so I'm gonna kind of go through more granular, but there were 10 open space and recreation projects, 3 affordable housing, and 9 historic preservation of those 22.
That's up a lot for historic preservation from last year.
Oh, yeah? That's good. So we had 22 individuals submit the applications. They came in and gave a quick presentation to the committee. And then at that time, like I said, we were only tasked with determining if they were eligible or not eligible for CPA funds. And I believe those letters are going to be going out to the applicants in the near future. 19 were deemed eligible, 2 were deemed ineligible, and 1 was withdrawn. The one that's the bioswale was withdrawn, but maybe they'll be coming back, and that was the idea of trying to get funds for introducing the low impact design on that particular street. We were just determining there were certain factors that I can go into or not go into if people are interested in terms of what deemed them being eligible, but
I would love to hear what the,
yeah,
projects.
so my understanding was that there are certain criteria such as if it's an existing structure or element that can be improved upon, that is something that is deemed eligible, but if it's something whole cloth brand new, it's not necessarily something that's eligible for CPA funds. If it's something that has to do with kind of an adjacent use or adjacent benefit, perhaps that's not eligible. But as you'll see here in the different applicants and the projects that I'm gonna kind of run through here in the open space recreation, right, these were the, I believe there are 10, what did I say in the beginning? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different projects. Tucker School, playground, I think everyone is aware of what's going on out there. The Randolph South Playground, there was an idea brought by a citizen, a resident, to explore the possibility of having a playground in that part of town.
Where on Randolph Ave?
Yeah, right off Randolph Ave, kind of on the side of A. Thomas and Sons, like the housing that are over there.
So the town owns property over there?
No, this is more of an exploratory idea to see if there is any town-owned property that would be beneficial or able to accept a playground. So this was just asking for funds for that exploratory work and perhaps hiring some sort of consultant or analysis to be done. Milton Landing Boathouse tent. Right now, there's a tent there, and this is looking for funds to make it more permanent, so that can be continuously rented out and activated for use for rowing there.
So would that be put forth by is it Dexter who runs it now?
It is Dexter runs right now, and who is putting that forward, I have at the end of the list. I can come back to you and answer that at the end.
Sorry.
Yep, that's fine. Brooksfield LED lighting, I think that's straightforward with that.
Is that replacement lighting?
it is additionally, let's see,
This is, Rex Field is the high school field.
yeah.
The turf field.
The football
It's right
field.
here.
Yeah,
Are those, put on timers and so forth?
Great question, I would assume so as well.
Just thinking about the, there are residential
the
neighbors
homing
like
there.
right next to it.
I think
And
it's,
some single, at least one single family right next to it.
The Boathouse 10 was brought forth by the Ponset Rowing Club.
that would be great.
Yes. Mary C. Lane Safety and Field Improvements, so that's brought forth by American Baseball. Right now, that field, the left field, there's a pathway that leads to the playground that's there. This idea is to add some sort of barrier for protecting the people on the sidewalks so they're not getting hit with baseballs. And then also some improvements to the field itself to make it more usable for multiple ages. Right now, it's only really geared towards a younger age, and so there's the idea was that the mound itself would be flexible and can be moved in and out, and the field would be sized so that it would be more usable by more ages and more easily utilized. Renovating Andrews Field, Andrews Park, at the field at Andrews Park, it's redoing the turf that's there with grass. Open Space Preservation Trust Fund, I believe that this is what you're
This
referring
is
to.
the Concom's coming
Yep.
back, because they were denied the last time,
Yep.
this is a different, yeah.
Geofield Phase 2, so this is brought by, I believe, Parks and Rec, to further enhance the facilities that are there for softball. And then Pagoda Circle Restoration Project Phase 2. So I believe that Phase 1 was something where they did kind of an analysis. This is coming back for further funds to start implementing some of those.
Geofield, is that turf or is that grass?
Geofield is turf, but it's not affecting that.
Adding another turf field?
No, it's, I believe it's, stuff with the dugouts, with the press box, with the ADA ramp. Let's see. Regrading of hillside and options to improve slope and grade for stair opportunities, ADA ramp improvements, built-in spectator seating, open press box and open concession area. So it's improving the user experience. And again, these are not approved necessarily, these are just the
Understood,
ones that are
yeah.
eligible, yep.
can I ask a question about these playgrounds?
Yes.
Could you ask them if they could do natural colors? Not like aqua, like Peverly Park, it's like aqua slide. So here we have a Concom piece of property. And so I think the colors of the equipment should be natural looking, not like yellows and oranges and aqua color.
I can
They
pass
should
it along.
sort of disappear into the landscape and not
Pass it
stand
along.
out.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Affordable housing, so Miller Ave capital improvements.
That's the Milton Housing Authority?
Yes.
That's
Yep.
great, that's very needed, yeah.
I believe, again, at the end, I have a tabulation of all the amount. I believe this was 150,000 off the top of my head. And the big thing is, I'm forgetting the gentleman's name who came in, Leo?
Earl Fay?
Earl Fay, yes. Right, he spoke at town meeting and stated that every dollar that the town gives, I believe it's 2.5 that the state will match, something along those lines, so.
That's great.
And I know that Miller Ave, did just get a bunch of money, which is needed.
I think they get like $600,000.
Yeah,
So I've been a huge supporter of Milton Housing Authority and I would love to see them expand and even request more money to buy additional properties around town. Cause I know even, I think we talked about having a two-family on Tucker. And so they have 2 unit on Tucker Street and it's a 2-unit and they have not been available to be rented out because they needed like new plumbing.
Conditions of
The
the property.
condition, and so it's
Right.
it's unfortunate, and I did say this to Earl at one point. I said he kind of needs to do a little bit more public outreach with all the contractors we have in town. That perhaps there could be opportunities for, small contractors to give back. Even I've been to Miller Ave somewhat recently, and they talked about the flooring in their gathering area. It's like this linoleum that's been down for, 50 years. So again, it just requires, outreach and have a couple contractors for a day come in and just lay down some new linoleum. So I think we should, again, I don't know that much about Milton Housing Authority, I've just sort of started becoming familiar with them. But I think, we need to support them as much as possible.
Well, certainly Earl made a, good case at town meeting.
Yes.
Really, really good.
Affordable Housing Trust, again, I think that's been one that's come back several times for this affordable housing, and Winter Valley Solar Lighting, looking to add site lighting with some solar lights within the parking there.
So, again, for,
Abutters.
abutters, because, Winter Valley and then the hospital's really gotten a ton of new lighting with their new parking, and then you're gonna have the memory care. On the memory care, we asked them to, have controls on the lighting so that it can be dimmed down at night and then activated by activity. Because, like, their new building is very close to, like, a direct abutter. That people mostly don't know because it's kind of set back, but there are still abutters everywhere in Milton, right? And so I just feel like lighting is so bright now, and you need controls to dim it down, and they can be dimmed down at night. And then activated by use.
Yeah.
So that would be one of the things, Hal, that feedback that
Okay.
I hope you would.
Winter Valley is such a great neighbor to have in town. My grandmother lived there for close to 20 years, and they're, I think, just such a great organization that I think they probably would be receptive to input.
Yes, totally. I will make sure to raise those comments when they come back for the application in September. And then finally, the historic preservation, so Atherton Fire Station. Oh, sorry, Sean, yes.
That's okay, I thought you might have been near the end, but is there a sum of money that's available?
Yes, you're beating me to the punchline, Sean. Yes, I have a slide at the end.
I'll be patient.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll go through these. Historic preservation of Atherton Fire Station, we're aware of what's going on there. And as Meredith suggested, they're not gonna be for fall town meeting, but maybe February special town meeting they'll be ready. Milton lockup slate roof repairs. I know that previously the CBC has funded, brick repair, I believe there, and maybe perhaps the window
Windows,
replacements.
yep.
And so this is just then, I believe that work is finally commenced, or is just about to commence. And then this is continuing along that with the slate roof. Forbes House came to us with a very nice presentation with some historic structures they're looking to keep, refurbish and, keep with us for another hundreds of years. The stabilization of the historic 1879 receiving tomb at the cemetery, which is very cool. Right now, that's where they used to bring the bodies, and they would store them there before they were buried. Now it's empty, and they're just trying to stabilize that so it doesn't collapse. Olmsted landscape assessment, so understanding what historic homes and landscape and gardens were designed by Olmsted and his firm, and just trying to take a survey of those and see which ones were previously here and which ones are still with us today. And then perhaps there could be a phase two,
That's great.
Who's the applicant for that one?
historic. I think it's Steve.
Jackson.
And are they
No, it's
looking at other landscape?
Steve O'Donnell.
And Steve
like-
O'Donnell,
Yeah.
Steve O'Donnell.
Like Spalding Garden or the garden up at the McGinley Mansion, so.
It would be, I guess they could look at that color.
They could.
It's
This is-
not Olmsted specific.
Yeah, this is specifically with Olmsted and his firm that came after that.
Yeah.
Suffolk resolves, house window replacements and restoration. Right now, those windows are in great disrepair and they wanna come back and, repair them. restoration of Pine Grove at Winter Valley Phase 2.
This is Pete, and that's, which is also in Olmsted.
This is a garden, right, yep.
Rita.
Yep, he did a lot of
And
research
Rita,
on that. Monuments and historic marker restoration, so this was, existing town, historic markers around town that could be refurbished and replaced if needed, or just spruced up. And then Blue Hill Parkway historic markers, so this would be a brand new, markers along the Blue Hill Parkway, just to kind of, celebrate that wonderful piece of town.
It's great.
Then finally, just next steps. So Sean asked, there's about $1.2 million of CPA funds available. 10% of that available funds needs to go to each of the 3 categories, and then the remainder is undesignated funds. So it's about $120,000 or so has to go to each one of those 3, and then the $800,000 can go as the committee decides. At the last meeting, for a number of reasons, we decided to proceed with the Tucker Playground request for $300,000. It's a little bit out of sequence from what I understand the committee's done before, but this is done so that it can be on the fall town meeting. They can get all the funds ready so that they can start construction come summer next year while the kids aren't in school. If they missed this deadline of the fall town meeting, they would not have been able to do that in the spring and have it ready to go for next summer, and it would delay a whole nother year.
So in that playground, so I've spent many years at Tucker Playground as an alum. So I thoroughly enjoyed my time there, but we had zero green, there was no green space.
So that's part of that's
So
part of it.
is
Yes.
there will be actual.
It's a
Yes.
beautiful design.
It's a, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they've got little, I don't have it memorized, but there's little segments, there's a green space, like actual grass. There's a playground, there's a hardscape for ball play.
Yeah.
There's like a little built-in, not an amphitheater, but like some stepped seats so that people can perform, like plays or whatnot. They've,
trees.
yeah, and trees, yeah, it's very lush.
Well, that's good, because
Yeah.
again,
Pollinating garden, I believe,
A few years
yeah.
ago, I, went down there and donated some plants and time along the right side property line, but I don't think they made it, cause it was, they just weren't cared for. It's, has always been a very hot site, a lot
Yes.
of asphalt, so
nice
having.
touch.
Not a lot of
Trees.
asphalt in this
Yeah.
design, yeah,
Okay,
it's,
so that's good,
yeah.
and also, paying attention to the color of the equipment.
I will
Because
make
it
sure
is
to-
the
yeah.
gateway, the Blue Hill Parkway is, Charles Elliott, it's the gateway to the Blue Hill,
It
so.
seemed very tasteful to me,
So it should be
Yeah.
natural,
okay.
and Oak Street's right there and needs to be lined with all these
They
oak trees.
have a lot of renderings of, and plans of the
They do,
design that, I imagine that they have available publicly somewhere.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the September 26th is the deadline for applicants to return their information, and then looking forward to the spring town meeting where the decisions of the committee will then be presented to town meeting. And then just a recap of all this, I can share this afterwards of the ask and the total project cost. So,
That's great.
yep.
So
Alright.
on the Atherton Fire Station, they're looking for, bonding. Did they get into that?
We anticipate that, but they have not
Okay.
formally asked, because their ask is quite large. It's for $3 million. And so my understanding is that part of the way the CPA passed originally was with the promise of saving infrastructure like Atherton. So I think there's sentiment that to fund at least some large value to Atherton Station. But how do we get to $3 million? We haven't gotten there yet.
And town meeting voted last year to bond, Wharf Park, does that affect this of what's available?
It does not affect this.
Yeah.
I don't believe that happens until the project starts, is my understanding, which is not this cycle.
Great, thank you, this is
Yep.
really good. Sean, any other questions did you have?
Oh, no, I just commented, I thought it was really well done, Al, great presentation.
Thank you.
Very nice. Okay, so the last item on our agenda, were the proposals for the East Milton Fire Station. The select board has deferred and put this off until September. So I'm wondering if everyone wants to take their time to review the different projects and then maybe put this on our next agenda again.
Did they ask for our feedback, by the way?
They have not.
Okay, so how do we want, if they're going, I saw that they're gonna rank the proposals.
Yeah.
I didn't hear them say that they were going to have a public input on the proposals. So to the extent that we can offer some thoughts, I think it would be very important to get the public feedback on the three uses. Doesn't have to be I don't know if the prices are all these posted on the town website?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then, as much publicity like anybody watching here, they can find these on the select board website?
Yep,
that right?
yep, so if you were to search for East Milton Fire Station RFP proposals, it takes you right there, and then at the bottom of that page, there's some direct links to those three proposals on the select board
Yep.
website.
So I know that a letter was sent to the select board about the RFP itself, but I'm wondering if the board, or you representing the board, should attend the select board meeting, the next one, when they put this on the agenda.
I think it's in
And offer
September,
feedback.
Avante. Is that what we talked about?
Yeah, I believe they're,
Second. Meeting in September, maybe, or they?
they weren't gonna deliberate on proposals until September 8th or the September 22nd meetings. So,
Because one thing I would say is how we spent a lot of time on the mixed use overlay in East Milton Square on the design guidelines. And we should at least encourage them to take those into consideration. The uses, that are allowed, the kind of vibrancy of a mixed use, walkable town center, which this is like the largest kind of one we have, right? So kind of reiterate all the things that we talk about that they may not be talking about at the select board.
It's such an important corner.
Such an
right?
important corner, a
It'd be an
gateway
amazing
corner.
thing to activate and have.
Oh, I know. I
And we
know.
should remind them that the public outreach that happened at the art center clearly demonstrated that the residents want the town to keep it. And only one proposal is a lease, option. So that was my frustration. We spent time discussing it, we sent them a letter, we said we really kind of wanted the town to put a priority on a lease agreement. So I think we should remind them of that, and, a lease agreement sort of buys us time, we'll get some income from renting it out, and then we can decide where, what the need is in a few years. So,
I thought I saw a
I think they're
purchase
all
for all
purchased.
three of them.
I thought one was a
Maggie's
lease.
right. One of them has two options, a purchase price and a lease offer.
I missed that then, okay.
They allow the town to choose, if
Okay.
they were chosen,
Oh.
the town could choose which.
I got it, okay.
Oh, I see. Okay. I just saw that buy.
Yeah, but I think we should follow it closely and, yeah.
Yeah, so my preference is for the town to keep it and lease it out. And I don't necessarily have an opinion as to what the use is. Right now, it's just, I think, we should not be selling any town-owned assets.
We only have three proposals.
So, great, but let's put that on the agenda, and have further discussion on this, maybe when.
But I really feel as if we should
Wait,
submit something when they're talking in September. So further discussion really might only be the next meeting,
Right.
Meredith. Because I really do feel like at least reinforcing the importance of the use relative to the whole district.
Yeah.
It's not just one building that the town happens to own.
Great, all right. I think that's, everything. If, I would entertain a motion to adjourn if
So
there's
moved.
nothing else. Is there a second?
Second?
We'll do roll call. All in favor? Cheryl,
Yes?
Maggie?
Yes.
Hal,
Yes.
and Sean? And myself, yes. Right. Thank you all. Good
Thank you.
night.
Good night.